Snow covered the town like a thick white blanket. Every road, roof, and tree stood quiet under the cold sky. The air was sharp and still, and even the usual town sounds seemed to disappear. People stayed inside their homes, watching the snowfall from windows and doors. It was the kind of day when the world felt paused. A little girl named Mia lived near the edge of the town with her grandmother. Their house was small but warm, with a wooden fence and a narrow yard. Mia was 8 years old, curious, and full of energy. She liked to look outside more than she liked to sit still. That afternoon, her grandmother was resting and told Mia she could play outside but must stay close to the house. Mia agreed, even though she knew her curiosity often pulled her farther. Mia put on her coat, gloves, hat, and boots. She wrapped a scarf around her neck and stepped outside. The cold touched her face, but she smiled. Snowflakes fell slowly, landing on her sleeves and melting. Her boots pressed into the snow, leaving small marks behind her. She liked watching her footprints form and fade. The yard was quiet. The fence was covered in white, and the trees nearby looked soft and heavy with snow. Mia walked around, kicking snow gently and breathing out small clouds of air. She felt calm and peaceful. The world felt gentle on days like this. After a few minutes, Mia looked toward the narrow path behind the houses. The path led toward a group of trees and was not used much in winter. She knew she was not supposed to go there, but the snow made it look different and new. She told herself she would only look for a moment. With careful steps, she moved toward the path. The wind picked up slightly as she walked. Snow brushed against her coat and face. She pulled her scarf higher and kept moving. Her heart felt light with excitement. The path was quiet, and no one else was around. The trees stood still, their branches heavy and silent. Then Mia noticed something unusual ahead. There was a dark shape on the ground near the side of the path. At first, she thought it might be a pile of clothes or a fallen branch covered by snow. She stopped walking and looked closely. The shape did not move. It did not look like part of the path. Mia took a slow step forward. The shape became clearer. It was a person lying on the snow. Her chest tightened, and her breathing slowed. She could see a dark jacket and boots partly buried under white snow. The person was not moving at all. Next to the person was a large dog. The dog lay close, its body pressed against the person. Snow rested on its back and head, but the dog stayed still. Its ears were slightly raised, and its eyes were open. The dog looked tired but alert. Mia felt fear rush through her body. Her hands trembled inside her gloves. She had never seen anything like this before. She wanted to turn around and run. Her legs felt heavy, as if the snow had frozen her in place. She looked at the person more closely. The jacket looked like a uniform. A badge was visible near the chest, catching a bit of dull light. Mia realized the person was a police officer. The thought made her heart beat faster. The dog slowly lifted its head and looked directly at her. Its eyes were calm but serious. It did not growl or bark. It simply watched her closely, staying between her and the officer. Mia swallowed and took a careful step back. She was scared, but she also felt something else. She felt concern. The officer was lying in the snow, and the dog was trying to protect him. The snow kept falling, covering them more with every minute. Mia whispered a small greeting, barely louder than the wind. Her voice shook as she spoke. The officer did not respond. He did not move at all. The dog shifted slightly, pressing its body closer to the officer. It lowered its head and rested it near the officer's arm. Mia could see the dog was trying to keep him warm. Mia understood that this was serious. She turned and ran back toward her house as fast as she could. Snow flew behind her as her boots slipped and pushed forward. Her breath came out fast and uneven. Fear and urgency pushed her legs to move faster than ever before. She reached the yard and rushed inside the house. Her grandmother looked up, surprised by the sudden noise. Mia tried to speak, but her words came out mixed and rushed. She pointed toward the path and spoke about the officer and the dog. Her grandmother's face changed immediately. She grabbed her coat and phone and told Mia to stay inside. She moved quickly, her expression serious and focused. Mia stood by the door, watching through the window as her grandmother stepped into the snow. Mia's heart was pounding. She kept thinking about the officer lying in the cold and the dog that refused to leave him. Outside, the snow kept falling quietly, as if nothing had happened. But for Mia, everything felt different. She had gone out to play in the snow and found something that made her feel older and more aware of the world. She did not know what would happen next. She did not know if the officer would wake up or if help would arrive in time. But one thing was clear to her. That snowy day would stay in her memory forever. Mia stood near the door as her grandmother moved through the snow with fast, careful steps. The wind pushed against her coat, but she did not slow down. Mia watched from inside, her small hands pressed against the glass, her heart beating hard. She felt worried and helpless at the same time. Her grandmother reached the path and stopped when she saw the officer and the dog. She spoke softly, keeping her voice calm. The dog lifted its head again and watched her closely. It did not move away, but it did not show anger either. The grandmother stayed a few steps back, understanding that the dog was protecting the officer. She took out her phone and made a call. Her voice was steady but urgent as she explained what she had found. She described the location, the snow, the officer, and the dog. She stayed on the line, giving clear details while watching the scene closely. The snow continued to fall, landing on the officer's uniform and the dog's fur. The officer still did not move. His face was pale, and his breathing was very shallow. The dog pressed its body closer to him, sharing warmth and refusing to leave his side. The grandmother removed her scarf and gently placed it near the officer without getting too close. She spoke again in a calm voice, hoping the dog would understand her intentions. The dog watched her hands carefully, then slowly lowered its head again, staying close to the officer. Minutes felt long and heavy. The cold air made everything slower. The grandmother shifted her weight and kept her eyes on the officer. She knew time mattered in moments like this. Back at the house, Mia paced near the window. She kept looking toward the path, wishing she could do something more. Her thoughts moved quickly, filled with worry for the officer and the loyal dog. She hugged herself tightly, feeling the cold even inside the warm room. Soon, distant sounds broke the quiet. Sirens moved through the town, faint at first, then louder. The sound filled Mia with both fear and relief. She knew help was coming. 2 emergency vehicles arrived near the path. Paramedics stepped out carefully, carrying equipment and moving with purpose. Another officer followed them, his expression serious and focused. The dog noticed the new people immediately. It stood up, placing itself firmly between the officer and the strangers. Its posture was strong despite the cold and exhaustion. It did not bark, but its presence was clear. One of the paramedics knelt slowly and spoke in a calm tone. He avoided sudden movements. The grandmother stepped back slightly, giving them space. The other officer spoke softly as well, using gentle words meant to reassure the dog. The dog hesitated. It looked down at the officer, then back at the people around them. Its body trembled slightly from the cold and effort. It had stayed there for a long time. The officer beside the paramedics reached into his pocket and pulled out a familiar item. It was a small cloth that smelled like the officer on the ground. He held it out slowly. The dog leaned forward, sniffed it, and recognized the scent. Slowly, the dog stepped aside just enough for the paramedics to reach the officer. It stayed close, watching every movement. One paramedic checked the officer's pulse and breathing. Another prepared a warm blanket. They worked quickly but carefully. They lifted the officer onto a stretcher, keeping his body stable. The dog walked alongside them, never taking its eyes off him. Snow fell onto the stretcher and the blankets as they moved. The officer let out a small sound as he was lifted. It was weak, but it was a sign of life. The paramedics exchanged a quick look of relief. They secured him properly and placed warming covers over his body. The dog followed as they moved him toward the vehicle. It tried to jump in after him. One paramedic gently guided the dog, speaking softly and reassuringly. The dog stayed close, refusing to be separated. The other officer made a decision. He told the paramedics to allow the dog to come. He knew the bond between them mattered. The dog climbed in and lay near the officer's feet, still guarding him. The doors closed, and the vehicle prepared to leave. The grandmother stepped back, watching as they drove away. Snow covered the path again, slowly hiding the signs of what had happened. Mia watched from the window as the lights faded into the distance. She felt her eyes sting with tears she did not fully understand. She had been scared, but she also felt proud. She had helped save someone simply by noticing and caring. Her grandmother came back inside and wrapped Mia in a warm hug. She told her she had done the right thing. She told her that being brave did not mean not feeling afraid. It meant acting even when fear was present. That evening, the snow continued to fall softly. Mia sat quietly, thinking about the officer and the dog. She wondered if the officer would wake up. She wondered if the dog would finally rest. Somewhere in the hospital, the officer was receiving care. Machines beeped steadily as warmth returned to his body. The dog stayed close, lying calmly nearby, finally able to rest after holding watch for so long. The events of that day spread through the town. People talked about the little girl who noticed something others might have missed. They spoke about the loyal dog who refused to leave his partner. Mia did not think of herself as special. She only knew she had seen someone in need and acted. That thought stayed with her as she went to bed that night, listening to the wind and snow outside. The storm would pass, but the story of that snowy day was only beginning. The next morning arrived quietly as the snow finally began to slow. The town woke under a thick white cover, calm and clean. People stepped outside to clear paths and talk about what had happened the day before. The story of the collapsed officer and the loyal dog spread quickly from house to house. Mia sat at the kitchen table eating breakfast. She felt tired but alert. Her mind kept returning to the image of the officer in the snow and the dog staying close. She wondered how they were doing now. Her grandmother noticed her quiet mood and gently told her they would hear news soon. Later that day, a police vehicle stopped outside their house. Mia looked up with surprise. Her heart began to beat faster. Her grandmother walked to the door and opened it slowly. An officer stood outside, tall and calm. His uniform was neat, and his face carried a soft expression. He removed his hat politely and spoke with respect. He explained that the officer found in the snow was now stable and receiving care. He said that without Mia noticing and acting quickly, the outcome could have been very different. Mia listened from behind her grandmother. She felt shy but also warm inside. The officer thanked her directly. He told her she had been brave and kind. Mia did not know what to say, so she simply nodded. Before leaving, the officer handed her a small card. On it was a simple drawing of a dog paw and a badge. He told her the dog's name was Max. He said Max had stayed beside his partner for hours, refusing to move even as the snow fell harder. That afternoon, Mia could not stop thinking about Max. She imagined the dog lying beside the officer, cold and tired, yet determined. She wondered if Max was resting now or still watching closely. At the hospital, the officer slowly opened his eyes. The room was warm and quiet. Machines hummed softly nearby. His body felt heavy, and his head ached, but he was alive. He turned his head slightly and saw Max lying near the bed. Max lifted his head immediately. His tail moved slowly against the floor. His eyes were tired but full of relief. He stood up and moved closer to the bed, placing his head gently near the officer's hand. The officer rested his fingers against Max's fur. He whispered the dog's name in a weak voice. Max stayed close, calm now that his partner was awake. A nurse entered the room and smiled at the sight. She spoke gently and said the officer had been very lucky. She explained how close the situation had been. The officer listened quietly, understanding the weight of her words. Later, another officer visited and explained what had happened. He told him about the little girl who had found them. He described how she ran for help and how her grandmother acted quickly. The officer felt emotion rise in his chest. He knew he owed his life to someone very young. Days passed, and the officer slowly grew stronger. Max stayed with him whenever possible. The bond between them became even stronger after what they had faced together. Hospital staff often stopped to greet Max, calling him a hero. Back in town, Mia returned to school. Her classmates noticed the attention around her. Teachers spoke kindly to her. Some students asked questions, curious and impressed. Mia answered simply, never making the story bigger than it was. To Mia, she had only done what felt right. One afternoon, her grandmother received a call. She smiled and told Mia that someone wanted to visit them soon. Mia felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. A few days later, the same officer who had visited before returned. This time, another man stood beside him. He walked carefully but confidently. Max walked proudly at his side. It was the officer who had been found in the snow. Mia's heart filled with emotion as she saw him standing there, alive and steady. Max noticed her immediately and gently wagged his tail. He remembered her. The officer knelt down to Mia's level. He thanked her again, this time with his voice full of feeling. He told her that her courage had saved him and kept Max from losing his partner. He handed Mia a small medal shaped like a star. It was not official or shiny, but it was made with care. He said it was a symbol of bravery and kindness. Mia accepted it with both hands. She smiled, her eyes bright. Max sat beside her calmly, his presence warm and reassuring. Neighbors gathered nearby, watching quietly. The moment felt peaceful and meaningful. Snow still covered the ground, but the cold no longer felt harsh. That evening, Mia sat in her room holding the small star. She thought about how one small choice had changed so much. She realized that even quiet moments could matter deeply. Max lay near the officer's feet somewhere nearby, calm and content. The officer felt grateful beyond words. He knew that loyalty and kindness had carried him through the coldest moment of his life. The town slowly returned to normal, but the story stayed alive in people's hearts. It reminded them to notice, to care, and to act when it mattered most. And for Mia, that snowy day became the moment she understood the power of compassion and courage. The story was not over yet, but its meaning was already clear. Winter slowly began to loosen its grip on the town as days passed and sunlight returned. Snow still rested on rooftops and sidewalks, but people moved with lighter steps. The cold no longer felt heavy. Life continued, yet something had changed in a quiet and meaningful way. Mia walked to school each morning with her head held a little higher. She was still the same girl, gentle and curious, but inside she felt stronger. She understood now that even small actions could matter deeply. Her teachers noticed her confidence, and her grandmother smiled more often, proud of the child she was raising. The officer named Daniel returned to duty weeks later. He did not rush the process. He listened to his body and followed every instruction carefully. Max stayed close to him during recovery, never letting him out of sight. Their bond had grown stronger than ever, shaped by cold silence and shared survival. When Daniel finally put on his uniform again, he felt a deep sense of purpose. He knew his life had been given back to him through the care of strangers and the loyalty of his partner. Each step he took felt meaningful. The town organized a small gathering near the community center. It was simple and warm. Neighbors stood together, wrapped in coats, sharing quiet smiles. No one wanted attention or praise. They wanted to honor kindness. Mia stood beside her grandmother as Daniel spoke. His voice was calm but full of emotion. He talked about responsibility, about partnership, and about noticing the small signs that could save lives. He spoke about a little girl who chose to act instead of turning away. When he finished, People applauded softly. It was not loud or dramatic. It was sincere. Max sat beside Daniel, calm and steady. Children approached slowly, and Max allowed gentle touches. His eyes remained alert but peaceful. He had done his duty and now rested in the safety he had earned. Mia was invited to step forward. She felt shy but brave. She held the small star medal tightly in her hand. She did not speak much. She only smiled and nodded as people thanked her. Daniel knelt beside her and told everyone that courage did not always look loud or strong. Sometimes it looked like a small girl walking through snow and choosing to care. As weeks turned into months, the story became part of the town's shared memory. It was told not as a dramatic tale, but as a reminder. A reminder to pay attention. A reminder to help when help was needed. Mia continued to grow, carrying that lesson with her. She learned to listen closely, to notice quietly, and to trust her instincts. She did not seek praise. She simply lived with care. Daniel returned fully to his role, grateful each day he put on his uniform. Max worked beside him, proud and focused. They moved through the town together, trusted and respected. Sometimes, when snow returned lightly in later seasons, Mia would look out the window and think of that day. She would remember the stillness, the fear, and the choice she made. She understood now that life could change in a single moment. Not because of something loud or dramatic, but because someone chose to act with kindness. The town moved forward, stronger in spirit. Neighbors greeted each other more warmly. People checked on one another more often. Small acts became more common. And somewhere on quiet winter mornings, a little girl walked with confidence, an officer served with gratitude, and a loyal dog stayed close to the one he loved. Their story ended not with celebration, but with understanding.